And live from Austria, Österreich, as the Germans say, or as people who speak German say, George Webb. How you doing, George Webb?
Hey, Peter. Great. Yeah, long day going, traveling and stuff, but seeing a lot of places and trying to get to the bottom of a lot of stories.
And where have you traveled from to where?
I went from Slovenia, which is sort of the edge of the Schengen border. I think they call it the Schengen Agreement, the 24 countries or whatever that are in the Commonwealth, to Austria, and we're looking for blackberries again, Peter. These are given out by the OSCE, the Organization for Security Cooperation for Europe, and so yeah, it's
I think I added the OSCE as one of the psychopath organizations on the list of psychopath organizations on the Duke Report last week.
that makes me feel so good. So yeah, I mean, what day
Well,
would be complete without that?
well, yeah. I mean, what should really make you feel good is that the top story on the Duke Report today. Let me see. Share. Hang on. Share screen. Brave tab. And this comes from one of our new favorite websites, theorganicprepper.com. Is that Russia is now openly discussing nuking London, Berlin, or Paris. So they're not following you anymore, George. If you're in Austria,
Oh yeah,
you'll just be in the fallout zone.
well, that makes me feel good. Yeah, who will even have time for Austria after this? I didn't see this. Where did this appear, Peter?
This is the Organic Prepper, one of our new favorite websites, and there was a Russian minister who was on a television show. His name is Alexei Zerkalev, and he was talking to a news talk show host, Olga Skabeyev, and they were talking about the new Satan II missiles that the Russians have that have 10 MIRVs, and they go hypersonic. So hypersonic MIRVs.
That'd be a good band, Sonic Hedgehogs and the Hypersonic Merv.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, just to be sure, 10 multi-headed rockets that all can turn into other multi-headed rockets. So there's no chance that you could possibly ever think about defending with defensive missiles that 10 MIRVs. So yeah,
Hypersonic MIRVs.
hypersonic MIRVs is even better.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and then just to top it off, at the end of the story, they talk about how hackers, and we know what Peter thinks about hackers. We think that there's a backdoor built into everything, and so hackers is just kind of a convenient way for states to claim that third parties did something that they did. Hackers hacked into the equivalent of the Homeland Security alert system in Russia, and alerted everyone that there's an impending nuclear strike. So that happened in the last day or two, also. And the Russians are claiming that it was hackers that did it, and
when you miss a little, you miss a lot. When you go looking for blackberries given to terrorist organizations. But yeah, this is certainly the possibility. It's definitely the West versus Russia.
Well, do you think it's really a possibility, or do you think it's a psyop? Because you and I both, we did duck and cover, right? Drop drills. I tweeted kind of cheekily today that I was the one who, when I was under the desk, holding my head between my knees, I would whisper out to everybody, "Kiss your ass goodbye," because because hiding under your desk isn't.
No,
it's going to make it easier for the body recovery people, right?
Well, yeah, I remember those drills, and yeah, maybe this is a school play, just to say we what's the end game? I guess for threatening nuclear. Is that why would they put that out there right now, other than just putting everybody on high alert? And what is this going to cause a NATO to counterstrike or something? I don't understand the.
Well, I look at more. I look at it more on the impact. I mean, if you think, Catherine Austin Fitts likes to refer to the people that control the world as Mr. Global, right? So if you think of the Mr. Global intent as opposed to like mere nations, right? So you've got China and Russia and the United States, and we all think that these are kind of the top dogs. But if you look at it from these nations are all controlled by banks, the banks are all controlled by people, and that there is a strategy here in order to get everybody cowed basically into buying whatever. So assume that you've got a nuclear. I'm riffing off the top of my head right now, but assume you've got a nuclear strike hanging over the heads of every human being on the planet. Do you think they're going to do what they're told at that point? Do you think that they're going to run out and start, being dissidents or creating problems or stuff? It seems like just another way of just like, pushing whatever kind of populist sentiment for challenging whatever government is in control. That'd be a really good way to do that. Like, you've got to get behind your government now, otherwise we're going to get nuked. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, there is no higher level of alert, I guess, that you could have, other than we're about ready to get nuclear hit with a nuclear strike.
I mean, you were ahead of the game last week, but you were making a joke out of it, right?
Yeah, well, I was saying that um, the the war had gone. Well, I wasn't so much. The war had gone to what I call FedEx war, and I went to this place in Hungary called Papa, where they were flying potentially not only missiles like the Stinger missiles and the javelins, but also flying the mercenaries in with it as well. So hence the term FedEx war. And Putin was saying, "Hey, if you keep doing this, we're going to respond, and this could be World War III." So that was a week ago when I was in Hungary, um, and I was thinking, "Hey, Where should I be? I should always be where Putin's about ready to send a missile." And I thought was the right place to be. But this doesn't appear. This seems to have gone another level, which is we're not going to strike at who may be supplying Ukraine, even though we've warned you not to. This is, well, forget that whole strategy. Let's just go for London. And I don't know. It seems like that moves us closer. The nuclear clock. Remember the nuclear clock on how close?
Sure. It also, because it wasn't done by a state official on a state channel. It was done on a TV show. It could just be a trial balloon, right? Which is like, let's put the word out there. We always we'll have deniability saying, well, this guy doesn't necessarily represent the views of the government, and we can deny it if there's too much blowback on this comment. But
Yeah,
we'll get
it
the
does sound
meme
like,
out there.
it sounds like a trial balloon, and it sounds almost like if NATO decided. See, what I believe would be the most likely outcome now. Between May 9th is a big day. I was here on May 1st yesterday, which was a kind of the beginning of the May Day celebrations in East, as far as the Slavic states are concerned. And there may be some kind of offensive that NATO is considering to push Russia out, a counteroffensive. And maybe this is the, hey, think twice moment. I don't know.
This is the guy who was saying it. So he's a politician. Okay. Alexei Alexandrovich Zuril, somebody else can pronounce it. Uh, so he's a member of the Duma. So it's kind of like he's a congressman, right? And we know that congressmen normally show up on American television and say wackadoodle things all the time that don't necessarily have anything to do with the government, but they are trial ballooning, right?
Yeah, I tend to think that the wars, the real wars, are, Kofor Black once again getting the Mujahideen on an airplane and flying up to some place, whether it's Bosnia or Croatia or Serbia or Libya or Syria, or fill in the blank of where we're supposed to believe there's a nationalist rising, but in actual fact we're flying a whole bunch of Mujahideen in, going all the way back to Osama bin Laden 40 years ago. And then we then flip the country and then go on and do it again someplace else. And I'm looking at this kind of Mujahideen, Muslim Brotherhood, whatever you want to call it, influence right now with mercenary fighters going from here to going from here into Ukraine. And I've been kind of just parking on all the exit routes. But continue with this story, Peter. I see you got the.
Well, I just while you were talking about your worldview on this, I saw this quote from Zukra. Let's try to pronounce his name, Zuharovlyov. Zuravlyov. On December 15th, 2021, Zuravlyov appeared on Russian television program 60 Minutes, advocating for the kidnapping and imprisonment of United States Congressman Ruben Gallio for his comments in support of providing arms and military training to Ukraine in the Russo-Ukrainian war. Gaglio responded on Twitter with "fuck around and find out." So are Gaglio and Zarivlyov the two you call them Punch and Judy puppets? So you got a Russian puppet, you got an American puppet, and then they appear on their television networks in each one of the countries as the agent provocateurs, even though they're not necessarily direct representatives of the administration of the countries that are actually in control of things.
This seems like a move on both parts to just get votes, shameless plugs for themselves and how tough they are. But I mean, if realistically, if you look at what Putin has said, or Lavrov, the foreign minister, what really is pissing them off is weapons being flown in. And they specifically hit the rocket factory, ARTEM factory, with 5 missiles a couple of days ago. They specifically hit that while Guterres, the UN Secretary General, was in Kiev.
Right.
And that's
so if you look at it just kind of from a pure media standpoint, whether or not you're Henry Kissinger or Mark Kulak, right? You've got a bunch of nukes that nobody's ever going to really use anyway. So the value of them is to kind of paralyze the public into falling in line, like I said earlier, behind the government, and that's all a cover for what you're talking about, which is the actual moving of tactical weapons strategically around the world in order to change the balance of power. So, in a weird way, like the nukes are kind of a big school. They're the most serious school play ever made, but they're a school play.
Yeah, because the real action is happening on the ground underneath all that. And if there is going to be a NATO counterattack, and I assume at some point there will be, you're going to have a real set of circumstances that are going to be complicated. You've got Su-35 fighters for the Russians that have to be knocked out. So you have to establish air dominance. That's going to be for at least a week to shoot the Russian air force out of the sky. Then you have the attack the sort of the air ground attack with helicopters and tanks and so forth. That's a huge logistical thing. And every
I don't think that the man pad thing can be underestimated either. Like, um, you know, it's and a man pad is obviously a shoulder mounted weapon that can knock the Stingers famously knock helicopters and low flying jets out of the air. The A-10s, as great as they are, you can't get close to anything that's got man pads.
Yeah, and that was the fear that Azov has the Elvis has left the building. The major superstars of the Azov battalion have left Ukraine, and they're going to now regroup with these Stingers and find ways to get near Russian airports and knock down civil aviation. So again, this is on the ground, real, practical things that might happen. One is the big NATO counterattack, which NATO has rehearsed for. They just did Defender 21, Swift Resolve, I think it's called, or Swift Response is the other one they've practiced with this kind of helicopter waves to take out the Russian tanks. But this asymmetric warfare, terrorist,
it's such a 20th century way of looking at things, though, don't you think?
well, yeah, I mean, the asymmetric warfare of terrorism, like you said, is way cheaper and way more defenseless targets. And what do you do when you knock down a Russian plane? What is the response? Is it NATO that shot it down, or is it Azov that shot it down? And then what does Putin do if they shoot down a Russian jet? Yeah, what's the response? Do you bomb the administrative buildings in Kiev in response? I all the alternatives that cycle this thing up are not good. The way out of this, I think, is negotiated settlement, which is saying, hey, Russia feels threatened in their security and needs, and they need a land corridor along the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov to their military base, to their warm water port, just like we have in Florida to Key West. Andrew Jackson and Manifest Destiny in our country said in 1820 that should be part of the United States because we felt threatened. And this is really close to their country, and it's their only warm water port, and it's all their submarines are there too. So
sure. I had a weird thought though, as you were talking about the airplanes, because one of the things that Ice Age Farmer points out in his video, which is, I think it's called something slavery, global slavery, or the future of slavery. He talks about this globalist plan for basically not having any commercial aircraft by 2050, basically eliminating commercial air flight in the world by 2050. Of course, if you're an elite and you have to fly someplace, you'll have your own private jet, but basically mitigating commercial airliners. And I was thinking, what a great way to do that would be to make it too dangerous to fly commercially, right? Because terrorism extends its way into the up to 35,000 feet.
Well, I can't remember how many flights there are a day, but I think it's something like 10,000 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of our commerce depends on people, going from place to place, and expertise lining up with resources and so forth. I think there would be a huge global hit if all of a sudden we went back to trains. As far as our productivity, GDP, etc. I don't know if anybody's ever modeled that at the Brookings Institution or not, but it just seems like, this is a slippery slope. If Azov goes after civil aviation, yeah, like Monkey Works will probably have the number of flights, but it's even in just the U.S., it's really mind-boggling.
Well, we could just come over to where you are right now and zoom in.
Is this Monkey Works video?
This is just flight radar. This is a publicly available website, and this is just the airplanes that are flying over Austria right now and Slovenia. There's an app for this too. It's interesting because I have it on my phone. I live here. If I click this link, it'll take me back to it'll take me back to my location. But I live in the pattern for LAX.
Mm-hmm.
You can see here's all the planes for LAX, and what will happen is that the planes that are coming, this airliner right here, which is whatever this airline is, Volaris, when it gets right about here, which is over my house, it'll lower its flaps, and then it'll turn to go into the pattern, which is where my cursor is. So it'll come down here, and then it should turn. Then it'll turn around and it'll land at LAX. When it comes over the Santa Monica Mountains here, it'll lower its flaps, and I can hear it, when they lower their flaps.
Interesting.
So one day somebody said, "I wonder what that is," and I pulled out the app on my phone and I said, "Oh, well, that's the Southwest flight."
Yeah. I remember
it
was a party trick when we were in San Diego, and the part that two alternatives in my head right now. One is Azov with Stinger missiles, like you said. Remember, we're sending. We just gave another $33 billion, no questions asked. We already gave $16 billion. So to Ukraine, and all these missiles, and isn't 10,000 Stinger missiles? Isn't there a chance of 5 of them falling into the wrong hands? Especially when you're talking about Azov here, you're talking about a terrorist organization. And then what happens? Does then Russia go after or the Germany or Hungary, their civil aviation, and then one plane gets shot out of the sky, and then you have to ground them all, and this is a slippery slope. That's where the war is heading. I don't think it's going to be nuclear war. I think it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be Stingers shooting at civil aviation.
Well, the thing, I was talking to producer Carrie about this morning, and the thing is that nobody in the world wants this war except for the people that are prosecuting it. And there seems to be a huge kind of public information warfare, or public affairs. What's the word? But just basically propaganda. But it's in order to kind of shore up the will of these governments to be able to continue to pursue this. None of the populations of any of these countries want to do this. And one of the interesting things about the internet and about YouTube and about the kind of global proliferation of information is that everybody can see that nobody wants this. Like the Azovs, even the Azovs without the support that they've got, the external support that they've got from national interests, whether or not it's NATO or the United States or whoever it is, they wouldn't have the ability to do what they're doing, right? It's like nobody's born with a tank and an AK-47 in their hand.
Right, they're being underwritten by Kolomoisky. There's no question about it. Like you say, I think the belligerents are loving this. If you have new weapons to test, hey, the F-35. If you're Lockheed, you really wonder if the S-300 can knock out the Lockheed, F-35.
Yep.
Or the 400 or the 500.
That's another thing that I noticed too, is that Ukraine seems to be the dumping ground of all of the Cold War equipment that's left over that everybody wants to get rid of. Like they need to get new stuff, so they need to go deploy it someplace so that they can. I had a friend who worked. He was an officer on an aircraft carrier, and he said at the end of the fiscal year every year they would take all of this perfectly good equipment and they would dump it off the edge of the back of the aircraft carrier, because if they wouldn't be able to replace it if it was still working, so they had to destroy it. And likewise, I see all of this. I saw that Poland sent like 500 Russian-made tanks to Ukraine a couple of days ago. To me, they're all targets at this point. It's like they're sending a bunch of targets into Ukraine.
Yeah, I was there in Poland, in Lviv, when the T-72 tanks were sent, and this is 2 weeks ago. And I said, I don't know if I can see them from my hotel room and hear them go by at night. Is Putin with his, spy satellites that can read a license plate from space? I mean, are they going to miss that? And then, sure enough, they got hit the next day. As soon as they got into Lviv, they got hit. And the supposedly surreptitious that closed down the ground routes when I was there about 2 weeks ago, and then they went to this kind of FedEx war. And you're right; it is sort of like there was a dumping ground.
War. There's an app for that.
Yeah. Well, it's when your neighbor gets a dumpster, one of those big ones, for construction or whatever. It's hard not to look at it and say, it's 2:00 in the morning. Nobody's going to know if I put a couple of things of paint in there, and it becomes this kind of collective dumpster. Because you're right. I mean, all the old war Soviet stuff that these countries in the newly formed NATO countries are just throwing it all there. They're lending it all, but it's getting destroyed like within an hour of getting to. The interesting thing for me was the target selection while the Guterres, the UN Secretary General, was in Kiev. They hit the rocket plant supplied by the European Space Agency, the contractor of the European Space Agency, called the Artem rocket plant that made rocket fuel for the European Space Agency. The guy who runs who did run the European Space Agency, Pietro Benassi. I'm just saying, that's the one thing that they hit, because they wanted to make a statement that said, NATO's supporting in some way, and something's happening at this rocket plant that isn't just rocket fuel. I don't know what that would be. But for some reason, that's the thing that Putin chose to hit. The Pietro.
Well, all of the man pads are using solid rocket fuel propulsion. So
I didn't know if that's what Artem made or not, but that very well could be. That if that was destroyed, then the Stingers wouldn't have propulsion systems. The number I heard was something like 10,000 Stingers, where they said they were going to need 500 Javelins a day and 500 Stingers a day. That was what the congressional request was.
I mean, getting back to your original point, though, the thing that really scares me about that stuff is you only need to have one go missing.
That's my point. Is one is MH17.
Right.
And 260 dead people, an international incident, and people screaming bloody murder and that they want war. And to me, like you say, all this PR, all this tap dancing and seeing porn versions of Harry Potter and describing Harry Potter's genitals in the girls' bathroom and stuff. That's our new disinformation Ministry of Truth girl, tap dancer girl. You just can't imagine an environment where a worse, tone deaf in every sense of the word, appointment to the Ministry of Truth. they need something. The propagandists know they need something like a shoot down, right, where everybody screams for war, because this tap dancer girl is not making it.
Yeah, well, I gotta tell you a scary story though, which
Okay.
is that which is that my 20-year-old daughter, when I started to talk to her about this woman and explained to her that she had a Potter rock band, she had instant credibility with my daughter, without ever having seen any of this stuff, and she said, "I think that's really cool that." Now, my daughter hadn't looked at any of this stuff, but as the words were coming out of her old boomer father's mouth, she said, "Oh, that sounds really cool." And to your point, if there's a whole generation or two of people who think that that's normal, uh, then we're in real trouble.
Well, I thought immediately, you would think that anybody who sang any porn, any show tunes, would never be considered for a DHS position. But when you're talking about describing Harry Potter and his compromising situations in a bathroom
Mm-hmm.
in a children's school,
Mm-hmm.
you would say that's no way that that person's going to be running the Ministry of Truth for Joe Biden. But it's true, meaning that we're just going to TikTok this thing and we don't really care
Right.
because,
Well, it seems like TikTok is like, I mean, they have like 500 TikTok influencers to the White House a couple months ago. Was
yeah,
she the one who organized? I assume she probably had something to do with organizing that, right?
yeah, and we're hearing that she's actually been a part of a Ukraine intelligence for quite some time, and that's why she speaks Russian, and that's why she speaks Ukrainian so well. Ukrainian's a hard language. I mean, I was on the border for about 7 days. It's a hard language. It's like Russian, but it's not Russian. And so if this isn't the Condoleezza Rice Russian, the polite dinner Russian that you can learn at Georgetown.
Right.
This is dialectic Ukrainian.
Right. And if you want to see a good example of that, the Patrick Lancaster video that's up on the Duke Report right now, I didn't watch it. I just heard producer Carrie listening to it in the background while I was getting ready to do this broadcast today. But he's in a civilian area, and there are munitions coming down and blowing things up, and a dog got killed, like just outside the building that he was in, while he's live streaming. It's the hairiest stuff. I haven't gone and watched it yet, but just from the way it sounded, it was the hairiest thing I'd ever heard. Uh, I mean, this guy's in a war zone, but it's basically somebody's neighborhood, right?
But I think what the strategy is like, forget about presenting the facts and this whole thing with live cut-ins, CNN, the Scud Stud and all that, that we're used to for the Gulf Wars and stuff.
Right.
Just with the battle maps and the generals all talking and the panels all, speculating. Forget it. Just have 60 seconds of how we're gonna blow up stuff with porn girl. I think
Well,
that,
but what Porn Girl is saying is that George and Peter are liars, because George and Peter are talking about real things that are actually happening, and George is actually there, and Patrick Lancaster is actually there, and Lyra is actually there, and those people, don't listen to those people because they're actually really there. They're actually really looking at the stuff. Pay attention to TikTok, because that's where you're going to get the real information.
and it's sort of like video games. You can have World of Warcraft or some made up fantasy game, and you're equal to your boomer dad, probably ahead of the game, because your boomer dad has a whole bunch of things about that he knows about Rommel, at Caporetto, and Ernest Hemingway, writing missives while Rommel was capturing the Italians. It's like, hey, this is non-thinking, vacuous TikTok, and I'll just say something about kicking Putin's ass, and then I'll get a million girls who secretly lusted after Harry Potter for part of their prepubescence, or somehow had their first early feelings, and that'll be my target market. And if I get 500 of those to all say kill Putin, I win. And she wrote a book called "That We're Losing This Information War."
Yes,
And
we can pull her books up here. Keep going.
I think the reason is that you're exactly what you're saying, Peter. Is like if we fight this thing out on truth, we're going to get our ass kicked. We don't have any real correspondence with CNN. We're going to get our butt kicked.
Right, and that's that's the unfortunate truth, right? The reason that you and I are doing this right now, okay, is because our entire lives, we turned on the TV and we thought, oh, that was their job, right? That's what those people did. And it was only when we started, like Toto, pulling back the curtain, to use the metaphor ad nauseum, as soon as we started figuring out that things weren't the way that we thought they were, that we just kept going. And now you're in Austria and I'm sitting here looking at maps of planes flying around and trying to get people to understand. And I think the people who follow us on this channel understand. I think that the big task in front of all of us, right? And it's something that I hear James Corbett talk about. It's something that I hear, Luke Rudkowski and Ryan Christine and Whitney Webb, and everybody's talking about the same thing, which is that, okay, everybody who follows us gets it. We all understand it. Like, how do we get everybody else? How do we break through? Like James O'Keefe says, like, how do we get those people? My daughter, who thinks that TikTok is woke and that it's lit, that the new disinformation czar is got TikTok videos. Like, how do we actually wake those people up without the obvious implication, which is that the world gets blown up before they figure out that, and millions of them die before they figure out, oh, we've been lied to. Oh, this isn't actually what's really happening. Oh, this is not true.
Well, network effects here, with sharing network effects.
Yep.
If I do a video of Putin and I do a wax cut out of his head and I put it inside an oven and I film it, at 1,000 times speed and show how Putin's head melts, and I make that a 1-minute video and I send it out to my friends, and that gets rebroadcast and it gets 100,000 or 1,000,000 views. Think of how long we work to get 10,000 views. So
but maybe you're onto something. Maybe what we need to do is get this girl wearing the Duke Report T-shirt to do TikTok videos, and that's the way that we get people to actually pay attention to us. Just a thought.
I think that's the solution to the whole thing. If we could just get everyone wearing Duke Report T-shirts, it probably changes the world in the arc of history. So that's certainly something that I would recommend people do.
Yeah, they could give them to their friend, their relatives for, it's May Day. If you've got a commie cousin, get them a Duke Report T-shirt. Maybe there's plenty of commie sites on the Duke Report. I mean,
yeah, there's memes galore that are going to come out of this this gal, Miss Showtunes. I'm not sure anyone ever enjoyed. You've been to theater recitals and rehearsals and so forth,
mm-hmm.
where there's that kind of ear bleeding, jarring way of singing show tunes, where it's just so in your face and you just want to just relax. It's kind of like dinner theater, where you kind of like just want to eat your steak under candlelight, and there's this just person just sawing the air in half with their voice. You know, maybe that's the thing. Is just uh, this is the new thing. It was 60-second TikToks that make you want to never hear again.
Well, make you, but I'm telling you, my 20-year-old daughter, it was not the response I was looking for. And by the way, I mean, I say this with a great deal of love and affection. Kids nowadays they are stunted in their maturity. That is, I think that you can take their age and cut it in half, and that's kind of what their intelligence is at this point, because they've been so bombarded by all of this media to the point where their ability to think rationally is just kind of it's shot.
Well, and I will say this too: their worth, I think, is skewed, because it's how many times have you been retweeted today? How many friends and likes did you get? How many? That is the measure of social worth now, and that is crazy, because you are going to have exploding Putin head cakes, take over TikTok, and
Right.
Putin bad. As far as messaging goes, Putin bad is about as good as it gets. It's 2 words. It's easy to say, and if but I just think that is going to trigger a simplistic solution to this, where there's not going to be a negotiation, and we're just going to say, okay, well, Defender 21, Swift Response 21. This will be Swift Response 22, and it'll be kind of a Doctor Strange love kind of march toward Armageddon. There is another way, which is called diplomacy and rational conflict resolution, you would think. But the guys who are supposed to be doing the conflict resolution is OSCE, where I was today in Austria looking for the blackberries. They're the ones that for 8 years have been providing weapons, mortars and so forth, knee mines and all this stuff, in a covert war against Donbass. The people who are supposed to be monitoring and conflict resolving have been secretly sending weapons to OSCE. So,
Right. So if you look here on the Duke report under psychopath organizations, let me see, where is Organization for the Security and Cooperation in Europe, right there. It's right there. So if you want to find these psychopath organizations, then they're right there. And why am I saying they're psychopath? Because they're the ones who should be trying to figure out how to negotiate this thing, right? They're the ones who should be trying to figure out a way, unless they're just really just a PR firm for NATO, right? Or
not just the PR firm for NATO. They're based in Vienna. I didn't get all the way to Vienna today, but
yeah.
These are the people who originally gave the Kosovo Liberation Army, which was the Mujahideen, all these, some ethnic Kosovars and Albanians, but mostly supplemented with Mujahideen flown in. They're the ones who gave them military grade encrypted communications, to start a 24-year history of our history of terrorism. Again, but like I say, I think we need a moment where we just get Miss Show Tunes to sing us a song, so people know who we're talking about if they are not familiar
All
with
right.
her.
Well, give me 1 second, and I'll keep talking about Georgia. And while I'm looking for this, Georgia, are you black pilled? Because it seems you seem a little down today, and I'm just wondering.
I'm not. I'm not black pilled. I'm just tired from travel.
All right. Well, we don't. Let me show you this, and we don't need to keep you up all night. I know you've been traveling; and it's late there. So, but I do have. Here's a little video that producer Carrie and I made yesterday, where we edited together Jen and Nina. So here we go.
Great.
She's an expert on online disinformation.
Oh, information roaring is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet circus. Information's origin seems slightly less atrocious.
She was formerly a disinformation fellow at the Wilson Center.
It's how you hide a little lie, little lie. It's how you hide a little lie, little lie. It's how you hide a little lie, little lie.
She testified before Congress as well as the United Kingdom and European Parliament, advised a Ukrainian foreign minister, particularly relevant in this moment.
When Rudy Giuliani shared that intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote.
Under the auspices of a Fulbright Public Policy Fellowship and overseeing Russia and Belarus programs at the National Democratic Institute. Any hiring decisions are up to the Department of Homeland Security, but this is a person with extensive qualifications.
Whew.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. You know?
Yeah, I have one on my Twitter too, where she says, "Who do I have to f?" Blank.
Oh,
blank.
that was on Breitbart. I can probably find that.
But to answer the black pill thing, the train travel in Europe is, people think of the high speed trains in Germany and so forth. When you get into Slovenia and Hungary and Romania and Slovakia and so forth, all those bets go out the window, as far as very slow. Like Zagreb to Budapest for me was like 8 hours, it's 180 miles.
Yeah, and the one thing that I learned when I lived in Italy is that you have to pay attention to which trains are the express trains. Because if you get on a train that's not an express train, and the express trains only stop at certain stops. So if you get into that ghetto of no express train stops, yes, it's a slog fest. You stop at every train station across the country. It can be crazy. Here, I found some more.
Sure. Let's do that.
Nina videos for you though, George.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Okay, here we Nina videos. Here we go. And I went to Breitbart Twitter feed because they have them all. Here we go.
Ever since I was a baby, I have had one dream in mind. And each Christmas, I think maybe it will finally come true. It's a simple wish that everyone has had from time to time. So I know you'll understand me when I share my dream with you. I want to be rich, famous, and powerful. Step on all my enemies and never do a thing. I want to be rich, famous, and powerful. So all I have to do in life is sit around and sing. I don't want to work, struggle, or compromise. When I set a goal, I want to reach it right away. Because paying your dues, that's just for other guys. As for me, I want what I want. And I want it all today. I don't want to audition. I don't want to take class. I want to be discovered while I'm sitting on my ass. I should not have to struggle. I should not have to sweat. I tried that for 10 minutes once, and look, what did I get? What does it take to be famous and powerful? Santa, if you're listening, please tell me what to do. Who do I fuck to be famous and powerful? I've done everything I can, and now the rest is up to you. I'm rich, famous, and powerful. Oh, come on, don't be so shocked. You know you feel the same as I. If we were rich, famous, and powerful, we could take all those agents and casting directors, tiny apartments and back tax collectors, critics and casting calls, chilly rehearsal halls, people who bore us, and jobs in the chorus, and kiss them goodbye. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah. Is that too much to ask? Yeah, I guess we can't expect any better from our DHS disinfo queen.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, again, it's like we're kind of bombarded with these people like AOC and Adam Kitzinger. I can't remember his name.
Kitzinger, yeah.
There's all of these kind of, low IQ people running around pretending that they're running things. And, at a certain point, you have to just ask yourself whether or not they actually are running things. This is my problem, my personal problem, with democracy right now. I believe in democracy philosophically. I just don't think we live in a democracy. I believe in capitalism philosophically. I don't believe we live in a capitalist country. I believe that these things are kind of, like you said, they're school plays, which is a perfect kind of segue into her singing about Harry Potter here. But
yeah, I want to hear this. And
right,
I'm glad I coined school play.
Yeah, I'm glad you are too. I mean, you didn't think it was going to come around and bite you in the ass like this, though, did you?
Yeah,
Here we go.
This is a school play gone, horribly wrong. I don't think Ethel Merman even had this grating of a voice. The glass shattering, 18-inch plexiglass that you just can punch through that like a Stinger missile or one of those thermobaric missiles. But here we go.
Okay.
Looking for some freedom in the bathroom one day, but instead I found Harry, and so I said, hey, solve the mystery of the egg. But I'd like to solve the mystery between his legs. Far away in the lake, so that on our honeymoon we can say, the ghosts have working that on me. What's better than that? We don't get STDs. Death is where we're fun with bubbles, that's what I say. Death is where we're fun with bubbles mostly every day. Death is where we're fun with bubbles, Myrtle likes to play. Death is where we're fun with bubbles when they melt away. Prefects are freaking high in any season. They call me Moaning Myrtle for a reason. Here you go. Prefects are hot. 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 Really freaking high. Prefects are hot. 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 Really freaking hot.
Oh wait.
Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, this is. I guess they tagged this on the end. Here we go.
Looking for some prefects in the bathroom one day, but instead I found Harry, and so I said, hey, I helped him solve the mystery of the A, and I'd like to solve the mystery between his legs. I hope that Harry drowns tomorrow in the lake, so that our honeymoon we can trade. Know that ghosts have working that OB, but what's better than that? We don't get STDs. Death is way more fun with bubbles, that's what I say. Death is way more fun with bubbles, mostly every day. Death is way more fun with bubbles, Myrtle likes to play. Death is way more fun with bubbles when they melt away. Prefects are freaking hot in any season. They call me Moaning Myrtle for a reason. Prefects are hot. Prefects are hot. Prefects are hot. Prefects are hot.
Well, it's managed to pierce through our, lens and filters. We love playing it. Maybe that's the Trojan horse here is that we're giving her a lot of airtime, and it's working. Their strategy's working, which is
we're talking about this.
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's hard to imagine this is the solution, but maybe it is. It's so crazy and so irrelevant that it just might work.
Yeah, Mark is saying, please, somebody invade the USA. We want John Millis as Red Dawn. We want our Red Dawn moment.
This is what happens when you fund OSCE for musical, R&R talent clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, hey, if we only put $1 million toward that, we'll put most of the money toward military grade encryption. so that they can do, covert wars in Donbass. But we'll give $1 million to R&R for the singing troubadours. This is what you get. So, so there.
Yeah, indeed. Well, George, it sounds like you're fading. I think that we should we
Yeah.
should let you go to bed.
Yep. It's midnight here, so thank you, Peter. And
you had talked to me earlier. At some point, you need to circle back with me because you talked about wanting to do some more reporting on this channel, and so whenever you want to do that, let me know. I'm available.
Okay, and I think this days at the front and going to all these different NATO things and so forth. I think I'm gonna. My next thing is moving more toward Italy and Switzerland, looking for Virginia Bonassi. I still think we should know who got all the bids for not only coronavirus but Zika and Congo, Crimea hemorrhagic fever, and all your favorite pandemic engineered chimeras. So be looking for a change here, and we'll bring it to you next week. And Peter, I'll follow up with you about that.
All right, and George, how do people support your work and get you to Italy?
Yes, I'm GEOWEBB is me on Venmo. It's called, and I do have a PayPal, although I never give it out, and that's why I never get any money because I don't even know what it is. I think it's anyway.
Well, but you could tweet that out, right? So if people follow you on Twitter, you could tweet out that link. You could actually even pin it to your bio there. I think
I'm going to do that. That's my new job. 5 years in, I'm finally posting a PayPal. So there you go.
I know. And every time I get off without pimping myself, then producer Carrie takes me to the woodshed. So so if you check out thedukereport.com, bookmark it, because that's the best way to fight censorship. Most of the websites that are linked on the Duke Report are banished in some way from some social media platform. So if you want to get the straight dope from what's happening, straight dope is something my father used to say. So that's kind of that's greatest generation lingo. If you want to get the straight dope, go to thedukereport.com and share it with your friends. Buy a Duke Report t-shirt, and you can buy me a coffee there too. If you click on buy me a coffee, you can take care of that. And big shout out and thanks to everybody who's done that. There's been a lot of people who have been very supportive of the Duke Report, and we really appreciate it here because it helps us keep the lights on and keep getting you the news. We're making improvements to the Duke Report every day. It gets a little bit better every day. So with that,
does. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, George. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.